Have you heard about this videotape? It's just a regular tape. You start to play it, and it's like somebody's nightmare. Then suddenly, this man comes on, smiling at you, right? Seeing you through the screen. And as soon as it's over, your phone rings. Someone knows you've watched it. And what they say is,
you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. Science and the truth are being attacked.
Remember that line from Tombstone where one of the guys is talking to Doc Holliday, and he's like, what's he want in all this? It's not revenge. And then Doc says that line where it's like, it's not revenge he's after, it's a reckoning. Well, it sure feels like that's what a lot of people want with everybody's favorite celebrity doctor, Anthony Fauci, whose past history keeps coming to light, and new cringeworthy to outright enraging details also keep pouring out. And Elon Musk promised this week that we'd get exactly what we wanted. That's why you're definitely going to want to leave a like on this video and subscribe, because the minute I'll be covering this closely all week long, you won't want to miss a single bit. There's a little bit of background about some of what's been coming out about Dr. Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci's house is filled with portraits of Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci, the outgoing director for the NIH, became the face of the government's response to the coup. As it happens, it's a face he himself is quite fond of. According to a revealing story in the New York Times, Fauci's can't come soon enough retirement. Fauci is the highest paid federal employee, has decorated his house with portraits of himself. Cheryl Stolberg writes in the New York Times, the walls in Dr. Anthony Fauci's home office are adorned with portraits of himself, drawn and painted by some of his many fans. So magnanimous is Dr. Fauci that he revealed to the reporter that he has some trepidations about sharing his bizarrely decorated home with the public. Maybe because we all know it's psychotic. I don't have any pictures of myself up around here. She writes, Dr. Fauci seemed a little uncomfortable with people knowing about the pictures. He said that previously, when they were captured on camera, the far right attacked him as an egomaniac. Because, what? I mean, like, what? Because you're acting like an egomaniac? I mean, this is also a guy that reportedly speaks about himself in the third person. Like, I mean, this is finally, by the way, finally, some reporting on him. Why? Because he's finally leaving, right? Outkick, by the way, New York Times Fauci profile reveals that he's an egomaniac who speaks in the third person. Somehow a recent New York Times profile uncovered that he's somehow even more egomaniacal than previously believed. That's obvious in the first paragraph, where it highlights his self-obsession. We know about the walls already, adorned with his many self-portraits. The story attempts to justify his ridiculous behavior, saying that the claims about his portraits are far-right attacks. He has said previously that when they were captured on camera, the far-right attacked him. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a far-right thing. That's just why do you have pictures of yourself everywhere in your own house? When asked about his post-government plans, Tony Fauci revealed that he wants to talk more about who? Tony Fauci. What would I like to do is make a real memoir, which is a life story of which COOF is a part. Because if you take a look at what Tony Fauci was and is, Tony Fauci is not defined by the COOF, Tony Fauci said. In case you weren't sure, Tony Fauci's post-COOF plans are to have Tony Fauci write a book about Tony Fauci. Of course, it wouldn't be any other type of interview without more blatant misrepresentations and misinformation from the nation's leading expert. The Times asked what his biggest concern is, outside of, obviously, diseases. What really concerns me is the politicization of public health principles. Bro, you did that. How you can have red states underpoked and blue states well-poked, and having deaths much more prevalent in red states because they're underpoked, that's tragic for this population. I wonder if he's seen the recent statistics about who's actually not surviving it. Not to mention, the state, by the way, leading the country in COOF mortality is Arizona. Arizona voted for Biden, just elected a Democratic governor, and voted for 2 Democratic senators in recent years. Not exactly an exclusively red state, is it? Again, like I said, this is being politicized because people like Anthony Fauci politicize it. Of course, right-wing states like Japan are also currently seeing death rates surge, despite exceptionally high poke rates. Yeah, this again, it gets politicized because of people like him. And now, the reckoning may be coming. In fact, we see Congressman Tony Nell's right. The new Republican majority is looking forward to the Fauci files. That was just a few minutes ago. Elon Musk teases release of the Fauci files following his previous scathing criticism of the medical expert. This is, okay, so by the way, a lot of people have seen, the release of the Twitter files and been like, well, nothing's happening. There have been lawsuits spun up. There are things happening. And this particular release should be very interesting given Twitter was revealed to have a literal Fauci fan club. Elon Musk teased on Sunday the release of the Fauci files, which follows on from his criticism of Dr. Anthony Fauci, who stepped down as White House chief medical advisor at the end of 2022. I wonder, that's some pretty curious timing. I mean, I guess he can't work forever, right? But he's got to capitalize on all those, he's got to have time to potentially capitalize on all those quid pro quos. Hope you're having a great day 1, 2023, the Twitter CEO tweeted. One thing's for sure, it won't be boring. In response to a comment, a user tweeted, waiting for the Fauci files, the billionaire responded, later this week. Musk targeted Fauci in earlier December when he tweeted, my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. On December 13th, Fauci said in an interview that the scientific journal Nature that Musk's remarks stir a lot of hate in people. No. It's not actually his remarks that stir the hate. It's that a lot of us had to sit outside hospitals as our loved ones died alone. People weren't allowed to go to church. People weren't allowed to go to the gym. Ironically, one of the best things for staying healthy against this particular COOF. People were told that they were subhuman if they didn't wear a piece of cloth on their face. People were told that they were second-class citizens if they didn't rush to get something crammed into their bloodstream that they didn't feel comfortable about. There were insane talks about, calling people who didn't want to do that, putting people in jail. Okay. So no, it's not just because people don't like your face. It was because you were the one that was perpetrating this. Also, definitely don't Google Anthony Fauci beagles sandflies. Definitely don't Google that. If you know what I'm talking about, leave a like on this video. If you haven't yet, subscribe. Later that month, Musk said that several Twitter employees had an internal Slack channel called the Fauci Fan Club. After that, he posted a tweet saying that Twitter should alter policy and follow the science, which must include reasoned questioning of science. Well, that's because now we're seeing, Elon must have been privy to a lot of this stuff earlier, right? When he's seen it earlier, he was probably looking at something in the Twitter files when he said, "My pronouns are prosecute Fauci," right? After the New York Times reported that Fauci had fan portraits of himself adorning his home office, Musk referred to him as creepy. He followed up by saying, maybe he just loves looking at science. You see the original tweet. The very first sentence in New York Times profiles. The walls of Dr. Anthony Fauci's home office are adorned with portraits of him, drawn and painted by some of his many fans. Creepy. Maybe he just loves looking at science. He should have written the science, because remember when Fauci famously claimed that he is the science? The science! Fauci had previously announced that he was stepping down from his multiple roles, including director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the end of 2022. Meanwhile, journalists appointed by Musk have been discussing several controversies arising from what are known as the Twitter files. These include internal discussions regarding the decision to prohibit former President Trump from tweeting following the worst day in American history. But the Twitter CEO and some freelance journalists are annoyed that Twitter files haven't received more support from the press. Well, it's because they are the press, right? Like, understand that we are the press now. You, my viewers, sharing these stories, getting involved in the conversation. We are the press. There is no... Fox News is maybe the only one that would cover this stuff. And even they took plenty of money from certain advertisers, okay? So, yeah, it's kind of up to us. Now, even though there were a lot of people that knew this, Elon is also behind informing a lot of people that, oh, you know, the person who was in charge of making sure Dr. Anthony Fauci made all the most ethical decisions turned out to be his wife. Now that made it in the news cycle. Here's what Anthony Fauci's wife actually does at NIH. Dr. Fauci's wife, Christine Grady, is the chief of Department of Bioethics at the National Institutes of the... I mean, wow, it is true what they say. When you get older, you start to look like each other, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. This is like, you could tell me they're the same person. You know, the corruption that we're going to find out about this is going to make people's blood boil. It's a necessary process, though, because it can never happen again. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, before you leave a like on it and subscribe so we can keep growing in 2023. We'll talk to you again real soon.